Trevor Brass here for TechNeck HC, and today we're comparing student computers. So whether you like a Chromebook like we reviewed last week, a MacBook, or even a traditional Windows-based PC, we can see that they're not all made the same and that they may fit different students for different reasons. So follow up more on TechNeck HC. So as you can see before me, I have three very distinct types of computers. Now we talked about the Chromebook last week, which is a very slimmed down, almost exclusively internet-focused computer. They tend to be very cheap, but they also tend to be very limited in what they can do. Quite simply, if it can be done in a browser, you can do it. But if it can't be done in a browser that requires traditional software, like you see on a MacBook or a PC, you can't do it. But let's also look at the hardware specifications here. We see on this Windows-based PC, you have a Core i5 processor, which is one of Intel's higher-end processors that came out about 2 or 3 years ago. This has 8 GB of RAM, which is a significant amount and should help you last well into the future. This MacBook has a slightly higher processor with an Intel Core i7 and a similar amount of RAM. However, we can see the ongoing debate between Macintosh-based computers and Windows-based computers has gone on and on. Some people prefer the Windows-based computer for its gaming ability and broad array of software that tends to work for it. However, those often in the graphic design, media, and visual arts fields tend to like Macintosh computers for their good works of Adobe products such as Photoshop, InDesign, and Illustrator. Whereas if you're someone like me who doesn't need highly powerful graphics or lots of memory or oogles and oceans of hard drive space, a Chromebook makes a lot of sense. So perhaps it depends on what you want to do with your computer. Windows computers tend to be compatible with the widest range of things. MacBooks tend to have a very good focus on media and the visual arts, whereas Chromebooks are very inexpensive for those who live their life on the internet. So ultimately, it depends on what you want to do with your computer and how you use it. Well, as we take a close look at the three different computers here, we see each of them can do very similar things, but in slightly different ways. So here we have a Windows-based computer running Windows 7, here we have a MacBook running Mountain Lion, and here we have a Chromebook running Chrome version 26. But we can see that they all have a very different take on things. And we see traditionally Windows-based computers are done for the more boring office programs such as Microsoft Word. Not very exciting, but naturally most of us students are doing a ton of writing. And Word, now in its 2013 version, is very trusty, even if it's a bit long in the tooth with all the different features you can do. So for example, we can see that many buttons are not actually used on a day-to-day basis, and this can kind of slow down the program. However, it does let you create beautiful documents and do whatever the heck you want. Traditionally in Windows-based computers, in order to access your programs, you just go down to the Start button here and find a listing by alphabetical order of all the programs you have installed. Now, Apple takes a very different view in their Macintosh operating system. Now, as you can see, we have GarageBand, which is an audio editing tool that lets you create music and mix up sounds. Now, as I said before, Macintosh or Apple-based products tend to be very good at multimedia work. And this, we can see Mr. Amio has already created some music for us. However, we can see that Apple takes a different look at opening your programs. So if you want to look at your full list, you instead click on Launchpad here, and you're able to scroll between panels of Windows and access all your applications very quickly. So again, they do the same things, but in very different ways. Now, as with the Chromebook, what I have here open is Google Drive, which is quite simply an online hard drive. Google is really big about putting all your files in the cloud or in their data center, so to speak. So there's very little things that's actually on the machine. Google instead gives their users 100 gigabytes of online storage to use for 2 years. In comparison, this computer here has a 200 gigabyte hard drive. So we can see here is that this Google Drive that I edit here can be accessible anywhere on the internet. So while this computer is not as powerful as these two in running multimedia applications or playing games, it does have the benefit of being able to access its files from anywhere in the world. So it ultimately again depends on what kind of use you want out of your computer and how much you're willing to pay. So now you've decided what kind of computer is right for you, but now we have to talk about another important thing, the cost. Because technology doesn't come free and nor does it come cheap. However, we can see here is that there's a wide range of prices based on how much you're willing to shell out and how much investment you want to put in your computer. Now, the Windows-based computer we have over here is quite powerful and has very good configurations with a very new processor and oceans of storage in both RAM and in permanent hard drive space. However, this one only costs about $800. whereas compared to the Apple MacBook we have here, which costs about $1,800 as configured. This is a higher line MacBook Pro, which is one of Apple's premier laptop products, and tends to be considered to have a higher build quality when you compare it to the Windows-based computer and also the Chromebook. And we can see, and we look finally here to the Chromebook, which only costs $250 and seems to be almost copyright infringing the design from Apple. However, we can see here is that when it comes to the Windows world, you often see a greater variability in price, because when it comes to Windows-based computers, Microsoft writes the software, whereas a whole bunch of companies actually make the hardware. Whereas Apple's a little different. They're a little more restrictive. They both write the software, the Mac OS X, but they also make the physical hardware, therefore ensuring you're getting a more premium product. Google has taken a sort of a halfway route. It writes almost all the software and creates the browser and provides a lot of the online services for the Chromebooks, but then leads other people such as HP and Samsung or Acer to actually create the physical hardware. So we can see that we can go from the very low end of $250 to the very high end of $1,800, therefore making it all the more important to what you really need to do. If you're just someone like me who needs Facebook and to write a document or two online and send emails, you can do all you need with any of these computers, but you really don't need this level of computing. Instead, you can be fine with the Chromebook. However, if you need traditional office software and perhaps things such as Skype, you might want to do a Windows-based computer, which has a little more power, but not necessarily the full range of power you get in the MacBook, which is top-of-the-line stuff. But then again, when it comes to cars, not everyone needs to drive a Lamborghini. But we can see Mr. Amio does here in his digital editing work, which makes a MacBook a wise investment, especially if you plan to use it for over 2 or 3 or even 4 years. So student needs come in all shapes and sizes. And as we wrap up this episode of TechNeck HC, we see that our computers, just like ourselves, don't all come in one package. Therefore, we must make decide what we need to get out of our computers. Like most of us liberal arts students, we're just doing a lot of writing and reading. Therefore, the Chromebook probably makes an excellent option if you plan to be near a Wi-Fi router at all times. However, for those media students, such as those here in our Grade Center, might need to be able to do audio and video editing and digital editing on the road, therefore making a MacBook a wise choice. However, some of us who are perhaps doing simulation programs in biology using Windows-based software, a Windows-based computer is an excellent choice. So again, ask yourself what you need to do over your type of classes you'll have, and that will help you select the right type of computer. This has been Trevor Brass for TechNeck HC. Have a good week.